Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's brand new episode of That Tom Clancy Show. I am, of course, your host, Mr. That Tom Clancy, and thank you all for joining us on this lovely and chilly Milwaukee Monday. Ashley, so great to see you. Thank you for coming out. I'm so glad we have you scheduled for a time later. Oh no, accidental spoiler. Ashley's going to be on the show in a while. It's going to be cool. But, of course, today does not get above 70 degrees right after we got our air conditioning put in the house. So, bravo, Mother Nature. Bravo. Additionally, the Crew Dragon landed safely on Sunday, which is all well and good if Elon Musk wasn't a living James Bond villain, but that's neither here nor there. Really, this is all just a preamble, mostly so I can get myself a little bit centered, get my heart rate down a little bit, because, well, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we're about 15 minutes late. Everything went wrong. Not quite everything, but a lot of things went really wrong. And, well, thankfully, they're sorted out. So, without further ado, my guest today is one of the co-founders of Dual Wield Studio, a group which I have a hard time defining. Curse you, English, and my inappropriate command of thee. So while I may not be able to adequately classify her work, it's pretty damn cool. Bits and Pixels, please join me in welcoming Rowan Rowden. Hi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. The journey of getting you on the show was, what's the word I'm looking for? Random.
Yeah.
Because, so you shared a post by, I forget who, about the difficulties of making stone dice.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started talking because we're nerds. And then I started clicking through the links in your Twitter bio because, well, want to figure out who it is I'm talking to. And then I was like, she does some cool shit. Let's get her on the show. And then you were all like, okay. And here we are. You were actually the first show I booked for the month of August. So
that's
welcome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think you are the first clothier that I've had on the show.
Nice.
Would that be an adequate representation of your present work setup, I guess? Or, really, I suck at words sometimes. And actually, my official note is clearly I suck at explaining Dual Wield Studio. Can you help me out?
That's fair. I am also not great at words all of the time, so I completely understand. Dual Wield Studio is kind of a weird thing to explain because it originally started as a merchandise brand. And for folks who might not know what that kind of entails, basically what happens is I, a merchandiser, will reach out to somebody who has an intellectual property. And that can be a video game, a TV show, a comic, an anime, whatever the case may be. And I reach out to them and I say, hey, I know how to make things. I will pay my own money to make things because I think your IP would sell well if we made things from it. And then a bunch of legal paperwork happens. And sometimes they agree that maybe it would be a good idea for me to make things for them. And so what that effectively means is we go through the process of designing merchandise, designing physical items that you would purchase if you were a fan of a thing. So sometimes that's clothes, sometimes it's jewelry, sometimes it's tea towels, sometimes it's plush stuffed toys. It could be basically anything. And the reason it's kind of hard to sum up what Dual Wield does is because merchandise is one aspect of it, but basically no one ever told me no to any of these things that I wanted to do, so I just did them. And now Dual Wield does a bunch of different stuff, like, hiring a lapidary off of Reddit and making stone dice and then getting mad on Twitter about it.
Yeah, for a moment there, I was like, wait a second, what's a lapidary? And I was like, oh, yep, I did read the article. Uh, it's funny that just going back to how you started things with sometimes you're not so good at words. And that's fine. But I feel like I should have a better command of them because I run a talk show. But, sometimes we just screw everything up. But I have a lovely little duck here, and, he helps everything be okay. So what are some of the brands that you've worked with? And Brian, you watch it. No. Sorry. Brian is clearly making fun of my my use of English, and he should really watch it because I occasionally edit things that he writes. So,
That is entirely fair.
yeah.
So with Dual Wield, a fun thing about being a creative is when people ask you questions like, "What are you doing?" It's like only what's available on my website because everything else is under NDA.
Oh God, those
But
are the worst.
it's NDAs, everything. It's so much. But in the past, I have had the chance to work with a lot of really cool different brands. So like if you're familiar with, BioShock, I did a lot of 2K's merchandise. Atlas, so Persona and Catherine did their merchandise. Dauntless, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, some anime, No Game No Life, Parasite, um, Stardew
Hold on.
Valley. Oh, yep,
You did Mass Effect merchandise?
I did.
How am I just finding out about this now?
Because it was the prior company that I used to work for
Okay.
back in 2014 to like 2017.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So
Because
I don't. Oh, sorry.
I have a Mass Effect. What's the word I'm looking for? I mean, I guess you could say problem, but I would say an overly healthy relationship with that franchise.
A passion.
Yes, a passion which exists in the form of one tattoo so far, and
Hype.
an 8.5 hour master class in not moving. I'm not going to do that anytime soon again. That's like
Tattoos are a
my
lot.
dude. 8.5 hours. That's my limit. You tell me to sit for like, I don't know, 6 hours. Oh yeah, man, I got that all day. But once I hit like 8, no, I was
Over.
every second I was just like, I don't know if I can make it, man. But then again, I also had to think like the artist too was doing all that through that all that same time, and man, he didn't get to lie down while he was doing it.
Yep.
So
Yeah. It's a significant period of time to be doing that.
yeah. So hats off to him. In another show in the future, I'll be sure to link his Instagram. I just forget it off the top of my head right now. But he's a really cool dude. Got it in Montreal. So technically,
Nice.
my tattoo is Canadian.
Got that Canadian ink. It's good.
I've got 2 Canadian tattoos actually. Brian came and visited me when I got the second one. It was in Toronto. Yeah.
Hype.
Yep.
Back in the good old days when we could leave the country.
Back in the good old days when we go to countries other than, what is it, Tanzania, Cambodia, and I think that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's it, though. If you can go to Tanzania or Cambodia, definitely worth it.
Yeah.
So, sorry. So you worked with a bunch of different brands, including Mass Effect, I Hate You, and, so, yeah. Words
Some cool
are
merch.
bad.
Yeah, I got to. That's okay. We did a lot of really cool stuff. I'm Now I'm like trying to remember what I know. A bunch of stuff I worked on was released after the fact, but we did like the singing Morden plush and the grunt plush and the Garrus plush. Like those I think were the ones that were the most like instantly recognizable.
I didn't even know there was a singing Morden plush.
Do you wanna hear a fun story about the creation of the singing Morden
Yes,
plush?
absolutely.
So the way you make a singing plush is it's got a voice box in it,
Hmm.
and the voice box is about this big, and then there's like wires that will go to whatever part. If you're not squeezing the box directly, then it's wires that go to whatever part you need to squeeze. In this case, it was Morden's hand that was not holding a seashell. So there was one hand that had a magnet in it, and there was a magnet seashell attachment, so you could make him hold it. And then the other hand had a little button that you're supposed to press, and it would sing to you. Uh, the only thing is that the file type that is required to do the voice box was not a file type that anybody in Mass Effect side had to like use. Like it wouldn't work. So we had to get someone else to re-record the songs that we would put on the voice box for the Mass Effect plush. And I cannot for the life of me remember who it was that did it, but they did a fantastic job. Um,
I only hope that they
and
were the very model of a scientist Solarian.
They were, and they worked with like the most insane turnaround time and just like a very weird process because we'd never done it before. But it turned out super, super well, and people really liked it. And it was a very that was the first time that I'd ever been in the process of making something that like did a thing. And so when we were at a convention, I would like pass by people and they would like, be pressing Morden's hand and like having him sing, to their friend, like, look at this plush I got, it sings. And that was just such like a weird, cool feeling. Like, oh snap, like people bought a thing that I had a hand in making,
Dude,
and like, dang.
that's awesome. I wish I bought it because Morden is one of my favorite characters in the whole series. And the fact that he also had a seashell is just nothing short of just perfection to me. Sorry for the accidental bird there. Hand still not 100% working. But, like, God, that's cool. Like, that's just
Thank
cool.
you.
I had another guest
Yeah.
on the show who had some work on Mass Effect, the game side of things, and we didn't bring it up during the show because it's was one of the more contentious entries in the series, which I'm not going to say, but I will say on the record that I adore every Mass Effect game. All of them, even the one you think is the bad one. Well, it's true. I just, whoa, hand, calm down there. But yeah, I absolutely adore the Mass Effect franchise, and just knowing that somewhere out there exists a singing Morden Solus plush just warms my digital heart.
It's it's available for order. I can link you later if you want, but they're
Yes,
doing a
please.
pre-order because they sold out and they basically needed to do enough orders to justify a reorder. Which I don't know how into the weeds about like the manufacturing process you want to get, but
If we're running out of things to talk about way earlier than I anticipate, we'll get in those weeds.
cool. But that's it basically. They've done a pre-order, so more of them can happen. And I
Nice.
don't know when it closes, but estimated shipping date is mid-September. So the pre-order's happening, and it's very worth the cost. Chad Gowie was the one who designed it, and Chad is a product designer out of Seattle, Washington, and is like one of the most talented human beings I've ever had the pleasure of interacting with, let alone working with.
Nice. And, I find that everybody works with some of the most talented people that they've ever had the joy of working with. I wonder if that's just a subjective assessment. I was trying to find a joke in there somewhere, and I don't think that it worked entirely. So sometimes you have to commit to it, and sometimes it works out, and then sometimes you look like a dumb robot on the internet. Sad face.
Worst things to look like on the internet, like
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. There really are. So when you reach out to these studios and stuff, Do you like kind of like put together some mock-ups or something? Like we'll just use me for example. So like let's say I was a real brand and you were like, "Hey Tom, you got a cool brand. We think you'd look great on a t-shirt." You know, like is that kind of how you approach it, or you just go and you're like, "Hey, we like your brand, we like your stuff, we want to make things with you."
Depends. So every year, there is a convention, and it's a licensing convention. And basically, what happens is all of the people like me, and then all of the people who have brands will go to this convention in Vegas. And you set up meetings in advance, and it's basically like me repeatedly talking to people and being like, "You make a thing I like. You should let me make things officially for you." And usually, those meetings are set up pretty close to. Um, so it can be a little bit tricky to have a full pitch deck in there. And a lot of the time, what they're discussing is very different than what I want to do. And this all ties into like the greater discussion of like women in video games and women in predominantly male environments, because at these licensing expos and stuff, they are very much focused on how much can you deliver, how much of a minimum guarantee are you going to give us. And a minimum guarantee is like how much money I would pay to basically have the privilege to make that stuff. And it's basically an incentive for me to actually make merchandise on time, but also so that the IP holder gets their money in advance. Um, but sorry, anyway, the merchandise process itself very much differs, and I kind of approach it differently depending on who I'm talking to. At merchandise conventions, it's a little bit difficult because might not know exactly who you're going to talk to right up in front, and it can be a little bit tricky. When I'm reaching out to different clients, usually via email or something, sometimes I will include um, mock-ups or like suggestions, but I have found that if you give them too much, sometimes they'll just stop talking to you, steal your idea, and produce it. So I don't do that as much anymore. I'm
Huh.
not saying that that's happened, but it's definitely happened.
Who knew that there were unscrupulous people out there who are just profiting off the labor of others?
King.
What kind of crazy world do we live in? Huh.
Yep. I also see that someone in chat is talking about a CRT plush head. And I'm
Yes.
like, yo, if you want to do that, let's talk.
Let's see. Hold on a second. No, I have to save that question for later. Fictional cat, way to just like spoil something for later in the show. It's okay though, you're cool. Nah, fictional cat is one of my mods. Like he is basically my mod right now. Like no offense to Brian or Liam, you guys are great. But like fictional cat is on point. So, Tanya, hi. She's gonna be on the show tomorrow. I can't wait. She is also like, dude. When you mentioned, you reach out and you set up these meetings, and then you just kind of like geek out a little bit and you talk to them, and be like, "Oh my god, I want to work with you." That's basically how I reach out to people to be on my show. And
Legit.
yeah, I am like super lucky that I met Tanya a few years ago, and I don't know how, but we somehow managed to become at least internet friends. And I mean, clearly it's my charming good looks. But either way, like I'm super happy to have her on the show tomorrow. Like it's been a long time coming, mostly because I just kept forgetting to ask her. But crazy times. But no, that's really interesting. Aside from the company stealing your work part, because that's pretty shit. Uh,
Not ideal.
no, not at all. Yes, and we are here to talk to Rowan. And don't you worry, I've got plenty more questions over there. I hide cue cards off camera. It's how I look prepared. When I look prepared. Now, going over your website, dualwieldstudio.com, one of the things that really kind of attracted my attention to it is that you have, I imagine that like you stand by it. But your mission statement, as listed on the website, is trying to be responsible in terms of your sourcing of labor and environmentally responsible with the creation and sale and shipping and whatnot of your merchandise. So that's got to be kind of rough in its, where'd my hand go? Hand? Yeah, that's got to be kind of weird. No, that rebooting. So how is it, what are some of the difficulties of being like kind of a startup and then also holding yourself to those legitimately higher standards than pretty much everyone else?
So it's that's the real answer, because I was on a call about this earlier, but like realistically, small businesses can't do this. We are not we don't have enough money. We don't have the connections. We don't have the order quantities that make it possible to be able to be wholly sustainable, or to do any of the things like that would in theory improve the world. It's a very frustrating place to be. So when it comes to like eco-friendly packaging stuff, you can kind of do that, but a fun thing that you learn is that, like with recycled jeans or recycled t-shirts, it's recycled, but like a good portion of that is still sometimes not good material. Like the for example, polyester's in so much stuff, and recycled polyester clothes are still made with a bunch of new polyester. So the whole like touting yourself as eco-friendly, ethical, sustainable, da da da, is kind of like, okay, but who determined that? Like what does that mean? And that's something that I kind of struggle with trying to articulate to folks. Is it's like with plush, for example, you can't get plush made in the United States. Let me rephrase that. You can't get good plush, the kind of plush that like video game fans and TV show fans and that want in the United States. You just can't get it done. The actual cost to manufacture these things is just astronomical. And if you did get it done in the United States for cheap, then you are probably taking advantage of a bunch of people who know how to sew and taking advantage of their labor. So it's not great. Um, so kind of what really the only thing you can do is try to make the changes where you are able to and what you can afford to do, and then as you scale up you include more and more. So for example, like we use a lot of organic cotton, but organic cotton is also not great for the environment because cotton takes up a bunch of gallons of water. Like on some level, I the more and more I get into the weeds about like learning about manufacturing and learning about all the ways to do things, the more and more I become aware that there's really no quote unquote ethical way or sustainable way to do manufacturing unless you are a big company. I was like trying to think of one. I was like Microsoft, and like Microsoft doesn't make clothes. That's not a good example.
Yeah, do they even
um,
really make anything anymore? I mean, the Surface products, but
yeah, I don't know, honestly. I know that there was a thing I retweeted earlier, and that's why Microsoft came to mind. But there is some discourse in video games about let me see if I can find it because it was today. Um just about like the sourcing process and what oh, here we go. Ethical abuses in manufacturing gaming hardware. Valve refuses to acknowledge the question. Microsoft cooperates, improves yearly and encouragingly. Sony postures, makes no meaningful process, and Nintendo shrugs in paperwork and doesn't say they'll try to improve. So like Microsoft's doing okay,
oh yeah, I
but
completely forgot about the Xbox.
yeah, the
Yeah,
Xbox is one, and then all of their Xbox exclusives and all of those books, games. Love that. Love not being able to talk. That's great.
yeah. I mean, let's just. It's Monday. It's 2020. Literally everything is going against us right now.
Right? Yeah. But I guess, sorry, to answer your question, um, it is not. I feel 99% confident in saying it is not possible to have an entirely sustainable uh, company, especially making merchandise. It's just not possible. As someone who has spent so many hours down the rabbit hole of like, if we get this specific nut, we can crush it up and that could be a plush filling. Like, oh, but the importing requirements for it are this, and oh, we can't actually get it into this country, and oh, we can't do this. It's just not possible. Like, it is so frustrating. Um, so in terms of the sustainability aspect and that whole thing, it's you do what you can where you can, and there's some really great sites that do sustainable, recyclable packaging stuff, but then you have to dig into it and be like, oh, okay, these parts aren't actually, it's only recyclable if you cut off this one portion. And if you don't, it tampers with the whole thing. Kind of like how if you have like one piece of non-recyclable stuff in there, it can jack the whole thing up. It's just, it's a very frustrating thing to look at this and be like, oh, like it's just not possible. It's not possible unless you have $1 million. And if you are starting up a business, you don't have $1 million, presumably.
Presumably.
Yeah. In terms of doing things ethically and from the people side, I think it's much easier. So Dual Wield this year, uh, basically we set up a thing that said, hey, the minimum amount of money that we will pay for any work done is 20 an hour. Because up until this point, I've been basically doing everything myself, and I put all the money back into the company and like don't really collect a huge paycheck. I make my rent. I get my cat some treats. I sometimes eat out maybe once or twice a month. Not anymore. I get delivery once or twice a month. Um, but I don't need like a huge amount of money to live, and it's not like we can go anywhere. Um,
No, not
so setting
really.
a yeah. Yeah, so setting a $20 an hour minimum wage was, I think, the first step. That once we got big enough and things were able to be done, I raised it because I had it at, it was like 15.75, whatever Seattle raised it to as their minimum wage, which is absolutely not enough to live in Seattle. Uh, Raised it to that, and so it's 20 an hour, and that is the only stuff that was really at that rate was like, help, there's an Excel file and I'm not good at Excel, or I'm really tired. Friend who is good at Excel, can you just make it do this thing? And like, it's setting up a contract. Every time you ask someone to do a thing that is paid work, you set up a contract and you make sure that they understand the contract, and you go through and like, it sounds so dumb, but like, you aren't an asshole. And that's so much of how this industry works. It seems like I will have so many artists reach out to me and be like, hey, thanks so much for the 50% deposit, whatever. It's just so weird to work with someone who pays on time.
God.
And it's like, oh.
It's exasperating from the perspective of somebody else who endeavors to not be the asshole. Though I freely admit that I am like the lovable asshole of whatever group of friends that I'm in. But, it's like, but I'm not a dick, Where it's like, I'm the guy who's going to throw the sarcastic jokes and like rib you and stuff, like, oh, nice, way to, it was a great trip, see you next fall, like that, those stupid kinds of jokes and whatnot. But, like, not a dick, but like, it's infuriating that we live in a world where it's considered crazy to pay people on time.
The amount, me frantically searching for a word that's not the F-bomb that I want to drop.
Fucking drop it, I don't care.
The amount of fuckery that I encounter on a daily basis, and tying back to why I said Dual Wield does a lot of weird stuff, I do a lot of side quote unquote consulting, which is basically like, artists will reach out to me and be like, hey, I don't know how to read a contract. What does this mean? And there are these companies sending these contracts for comics, for art, for covers, for whatever. and they're just awful. Like, they're just genuinely terrible predatory contracts specifically aimed at taking advantage of these young 18 to 25-year-olds who are not going to have years and years of experience reading contracts. And it's just, it makes me so mad. Like, of all the, no, actually, that's not the only hill I'll die on. There's a lot of hills I'll die on. But bad contracts are one of the most infuriating. And so a lot of what I do is people will send me their contracts and we'll schedule calls. And it's like, hey, this is how you read a contract. These are the terms to be aware of. This is how this works. This is the parts that I would personally be concerned with. Because if you're a small artist, like, are you going to hire an internet and IP lawyer? Because I did. It's $285 an hour. Like, how are you going to afford that as a small creator? And the fact that these big companies aren't either making a more friendly contract, which is possible, I know because I've done it, or B, offering as part of their stuff, get your freaking lawyer on the call and explain it to them. Get a different lawyer on retainer, because you can't technically have your lawyer explain it because it's conflict of interest. But like, there are ways to do this, and the industry just doesn't want to, and it just like put my face into a pillow and scream.
Yeah. Ashley in chat goes, fuckery is a great word. No substitute would have sufficed. And she's absolutely correct. Because it is, I feel like we're going very deep in the political rabbit hole, and I don't care. But I'm warning the audience.
Down.
Because I wear my politics on my sleeve. Which is that I believe all people are created equal. I believe everybody has a right to a living wage. I feel that everybody has a right to health care. I feel that everybody deserves respect, and respect should be given immediately, no questions asked. And I think, that pretty much sums up the bulk of my beliefs, so yeah. And I don't think Fictional Cat's actually going, but if they are, it's okay. We'll see you later. But I'm pretty positive they'll be hanging out towards the end, because he's gonna make me dab, and probably you too.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But it's greed is just such a stupid thing. Like, it's just, oh no, Ashley made me dab. Dab. It'll look cooler when I have arms, and I'm working on that. Another previous guest offered to make a complete model for my character, and so we've been shooting concept art back and forth.
Nice.
Yeah. But, that's a hill I'll die on, is that, well, your arms are made of composite cables and such. I don't know. Wrong time. But we'll talk later. It's cool. That's one of the hills that I'll die on. Absolutely. Like, dude, and I'll die on some petty hills. Like, Liam can tell you that one of the hills that I die on is when people are all like, oh, it's, I'm in Pacific Standard Time. And I'm like, no, you're not. It's the summer. It's Pacific Daylight Time. I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
It's a stupid hill. It is petty as hell, but I'll die there. And I absolutely like the idea of people being equal, the idea of people being deserving a fair wage, like, because my day job right now, I'm on furlough, but thank the maker for that, is I work at Starbucks. And through the whole, like, the first couple months of the pandemic, they were giving everybody an additional like $3 an hour to work there, which, is pretty great no matter where you are. But it still falls shy of whatever a legitimate minimum wage is. And then as soon as everything started to open back up, despite the fact that nothing was any safer, they took all of that away. And I'm like, wait a second, you can afford to pay us an additional $3 an hour through a government mandated shutdown, But the moment that people are allowed to come back in the store, you magically can't make those additional $3 happen? Like, this is some bullshit. You know? But, well, yes, you do know.
It genuinely makes me want to scream. Like, if I could, like, scream and, like, spit spiders, like, that is how I feel. Like, it's just such an all-encompassing rage. Because I know what it costs to make these things. I know running two businesses has let me know, like, what it takes to do these things. And the fact that every single big company is built on the concept of paying people shit money is the most disgusting thing. So, a perfect example of, like, the dumbness of the situation. When the PPP and the EIDL were coming out, and PPP is the Protection Program. In the EIDL, I don't remember what it stands for, but it's basically like government loans for you if you're a business.
I will say I'm really happy that Jared Kushner's paycheck was protected with the program.
Jesus.
Because no, I got nothing nice and I can't come up with something funny quickly. So
yeah, God forbid Jared Kushner not get his pay.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, it's. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say in chat, if you guys want to see a weekly like politics show, like put something in chat because I'll gladly do that. Because man, I want to rant about this shit so much every week. I'm pretty sure my wife is sick of it, but because you know we both F in chat if you want a Tom politics show, because I'll politic the hell out of it. I don't care. But yeah, so the PPP and the other alphabet soup that didn't actually help people.
Yeah, it's so much of these programs were not benefiting the people that they were supposed to benefit, and I get that that's just high level. You can't please everyone, whatever. But so many of my friends who work at places like Starbucks or at local cupcake shops or at, any of these places, I know that they got the PPP, like they freaking said that they did, and like that's how they kept their jobs. And like what? Now they're going down to the pre-hazard pay. Like I know how much money you got because I got a loan too, and like it's a significant chunk of change if you are not a self-employed person paying yourself peanuts, in which case it's like almost insulting how much you get. But anyway.
Well, hey, at least you got some additional peanuts.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. Government. I got a couple peanuts, and
you could share them with the elephants at the zoo. You know,
exactly.
Rising tide raises all ships.
Exactly.
God,
sorry?
I was just going to say there's a basic economic principle which calls that, as prices go up, then the pay has to go up for the laborers. But then, that cycle of how prices and demand and labor and all that stuff. And it's like prices keep going up, but labor doesn't go up. Like the simple truth of it is that if you don't pay your workers, they don't have money to spend on things at stores, which then pay other workers. And it's the wrong trickle down. Not that Reagan's trickle down economics ever actually worked, but it's. Who would have thought that putting more money in the hands of the majority of the people would actually help the economy? Because when the majority of the people have money to spend on things, they can actually get things. And getting things gets people jobs. I need a soapbox.
Right? No, I feel it. but that's the thing, is it's like I don't know. I said this a couple times on Twitter, and I'll die on the hill. I don't think you should be in business if you aren't in business if you are not treating your employees well, if they do not have paid vacation, if they do not have health insurance, if they do not get a living wage, you shouldn't be in business. And I am glad to see you crumble. And that is, I've gone from being the person who like well, I'm still this person, but like, I'll save a bee if it's fallen on the street. I'll like take it off the sidewalk and put it in some flowers. And I don't like to kill animals, and like I'll rescue spiders and stuff. But no, fuck that. If you're in business making millions of dollars and you are not paying your employees well, you deserve everything you get. And I'm done. I don't know. I'm 30 years old now, and like the first 29 years was like, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's really hard to run a business, and like I understand that there are expenses. And now I'm like, nah, burn. Like, I'm done. Burn it to the ground. It's mm,
I turn
mm.
38 later this year. And when I was finishing up college, I had one friend who, for some reason, was really hard conservative, which I don't understand. Well, I mean, like, I get it in that, like, they think that the meritocracy world of their libertarian views exists, but it doesn't. And if it did, that would be great. But if it did, that would mean that we lived in the post-scarcity federation, which is really just a huge, big socialist system that just looks like a libertarian system. But he would always tell me, because I've always been like the crazy lefty of my group, as you get older, you'll get more conservative. As I get older, as I've gotten older, I just look over at Bernie Sanders and I'm like, he's nice, but I don't think he goes quite far enough.
No, that's, yeah, no, I'm this year specifically, like, boy, howdy, have I gotten even more like radically liberal apparently, but I don't know.
Five.
So yes, now I have 3 arms. Hell yeah. But no, I think that's exactly it. And I think that it's a very, I saw the arm, the Twitch delay. Got it. All right.
Yeah, it's okay. They're there. Just they don't look like it.
I got it. We're good. I entirely lost my train of thought. The floating hand,
don't worry about it.
Hole just completely distracted me.
Going radical left.
Going radical left. One of the things that we're gonna this is an NDA because it's Dual Wield specific, but I think that it would be very fascinating to explore what it means, not socialism, but like explore what it means to have a fairer system of merchandising, and what does that look like. In this case, we started off with a program called Donate Receive, and basically what happened is back when the mask thing started being necessary back in February, I was working with my Chinese manufacturers and getting masks into the United States, because I have a lot of friends who do I was like, what is the word? Hospitaling. They do hospitaling. That's the thing. They're nurses. They're people on the front lines during COVID.
We've created a new verb: hospitaling.
Hospitaling. That's their job. That's write that on their resume.
And Fictional Cat has redeemed the points for your dab.
Okay, so this I don't think I've ever dabbed before. Does it matter the direction? Is it just literally just making
you go whichever way makes you feel best?
Okay. There we go.
Boom. We've been having good dabs. So, importing masks from China, friends who do hospitaling.
Yes.
I'm so good at this show.
I'm trying to remember what the prior subject was that was leading to that. That's the problem. That's my brain just being like
something manufacturing, making masks.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Thank you. Yes. Ha. You are good at the show. So we have a Donate Receive mask program, and what happens is someone can spend money and buy a mask for a stranger, and someone else, a stranger, can go and receive a mask. Because what was happening is I can throw masks to the problem all day long, but realistically, I was spending hundreds of dollars. I was supposed to go to freaking London in April, and that definitely didn't happen. So I used my vacation money to like buy masks and like start mask production, because it was like, well, this is gonna be a thing. And it quickly became very evident that like it was much worse than I thought. Like on some level, I like my anticipation of how the American government was going to handle this was already pretty freaking low, but like, dang, they're just finding new ways to disappoint me every day.
I imagine they were like, let's take a picture of how Rowan thinks we're going to handle this, and then let's set that on fire, and then have a hippopotamus like fart on it.
That's pretty much on par with how the government has handled it. And I feel uniquely able to criticize them as someone who imported masks faster than any of the people they paid $60 million to. But anyway, there is a program where you can donate and receive a mask. So an anonymous stranger can buy a mask for another anonymous stranger. And I want to implement that for every item on the storefront. What if you could, if you were a person who had money and wanted to support a small business, what if you could just buy an item and know that it would go to a stranger? And even more than that, what about, so Tamora Pierce is a license that I have. And for folks not aware of who Tamora Pierce is, she's a young adult novelist who wrote a bunch of books back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And they are about the first women knights, or the first woman who was this or that. And it's basically a fantasy world. And as a child, it was formative for me. Like, I grew up reading these books. These books literally saved me from death as a child. They just meant so much to me. And I know that I'm not the only one. So now that I make merchandise for her, I get all of these fans in my inbox who it's the same thing. Tammy means so much to me. Tammy saved my life when I was young because I was reading these books and they gave me something to like hold on to, and it means so much. But I'm broke and I can't afford a $35 t-shirt. I can't afford a $20 poster. And so one of the things I'm looking at doing is what if we sold things at cost? Like, what? No one's ever done it before. Why not? Why can't we sell things at cost? Like, fuck it, let's do it. And so we're looking at how to set the framework up, because of course it's not easy. Like, you can't just say like this pay what you want, like itch.io does, which is really cool. There's an entire backend that needs to be set up. But I think merchandise should be accessible, and I want to make it accessible in every term of the word, whether that's by creating it or explaining how to create it and making those things accessible to folks who want to make it but can't afford to hire someone, or even just like buying a thing of merchandise for an IP that you love. It feels real bad to be like, oh, you can't afford this one thing that's ever existed for this IP that's meant so much to you for 30 years because it's $20 more than what you can pay. Peace. Like, that's so gross. I hate it. So we're not doing it anymore.
That's awesome.
We'll see how it goes, but I'm hopeful.
Dude, all the thumbs up for you on that one. Like, because I'm kind of at a loss for words at that, because it's as somebody else who, like, I fully understand what you mean by like a series of books being formative and also very life-saving. And although for me it's The Expanse and adulthood, but neither here nor there. But goddamn, why can't we have more people like you? It's just,
thank you.
Yeah, because that's just awesome. I mean, it's like, I hate saying pay it forward because I think that's like one of the weirdest and most overused phrases, but it's just, the idea that you are willing to like kind of go to bat and help people out, even with your business, which you very clearly have a vested interest in doing well, like, that's just excellent humaning, and that's another new verb we have coined here on the show, humaning.
But I think it is important. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say,
there's a little bit of delay on my end.
Oh, no, it's fine. There's just like, this interview has gone so far afield of what I had originally anticipated, and which is excellent. I mean, like, I had a question. It's like, the whole like, hey, what's it like doing a startup? Any advice? What are some of the hurdles you encountered? And no, we instead like went to the fork in the road and we said, no, screw it, burn down the road, and then took a hard left. And that, like, dude, this is awesome. 100% people need to be human more. Liam, I presume that you meant to put an exclamation point there. But Rights for Chocolate says you were one of a kind.
I know you, but thank you. That's sweet.
And then Liam's another person who's trying to use some, his platform to try and help boost things too. He runs a hashtag called Pitch Your Game, and I kind of also help with it, but like I don't really do anything for it. So, is what it is. But the whole idea is to get attention to people whose games would otherwise go under the radar. And the part I do for it is I invite a bunch of the people on my show too. And like, dude, next week I have an interview with a guy from Iran. And like, I'm so looking forward to talking to an Iranian guy about game development. Like,
yeah,
like how is he like what formative things happened in his childhood that put him on this path, like so interesting to me. I had a guy on from Nigeria a couple months ago, like, and it's just getting the opportunity to, even with a small following, to just kind of like help push that out there. It's just like so cool.
Yeah.
So also his game looks trippy as hell.
It's awesome. But I think that that's really important. And like, I have been very uniquely privileged to be in the right place at the right time so often. And it's pure dumb luck. So much of where things that I have gotten or connections that I have made or any of that have just been, I was at a party. And I was at that party because I have a friend who was a journalist who got a +1. And I got to go in and meet all of these quote unquote famous people. And those people then introduced me to this other person. And like I know that America specifically is very focused on what's in it for me. And it's the American way. You build yourself up or pull yourself up by your bootstraps and whatever. And like, that's a whole other thing. I'm not going to get on it.
I'm right there with you on it.
What is the point of getting there if you are not bringing people up with you? And I think that is the part that people forget so often. And that's what's so frustrating is it's like, why does it have to be just me that succeeds? That's dumb. Like there's plenty of room in merchandising for plenty of other people. And if you've ever gone to like a PAX or any gaming convention or any convention at all, when's the last time you saw a Black person working a merchandise booth? Maybe because in my 4 years of doing it, there's one guy, he owns Glitch. He's the only guy I've ever met who's in merchandising as a Black man. And it's shit. Like it's absolute. Sorry.
No, it's
trying not to do that.
Well, we threw out like fuckery. It pretty much just all just went out the window.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The one rule.
It's not even a rule. It's a guideline. There are no rules on this show. Fictional Cat. First rule of this show: no rules on the show. Second rule of the show: everybody should have fun. So. Yeah, so it's, like, fuck it, I don't care. The first guest I had on, Rami Ishmael, and we basically devolved into fuck, I remember that fucking day and doing that fucking game and that shit ass motherfucker. It happens. I just won't tell my mother-in-law about this episode. But yeah, dude, I got really uncomfortable when you asked that question because I've only been to a couple of PAX events, and I was just sitting here and I'm just like, holy shit, she's absolutely correct. Like, even just thinking about it, I was like, dude, how many Black people did I even see at PAX?
Yeah, that's a whole other nightmare. That gaming industry, boy howdy. But yeah, it's so it's a little bit harder to do hiring and make an effort to hire people of color or diverse creators and stuff when you don't see them, because it's one of the rare times where it's kind of inconvenient not to be able to see someone and be like, oh, you're not like a white guy. Like, that's great. Like, it's not as easy to do that when it's online hiring. So it's been a very interesting problem to solve, is like, how do we make a concerted effort to give these opportunities to folks that might not otherwise have them. And the realistic thing is, if you are a small business and you don't have an HR department, it means you're on Twitter until 2 a.m. searching through hashtags and basically making your own lists of these people and being like, okay, this person does illustration. They wouldn't be good for the illustration I need for this IP, but they'd be really good for these IPs later. And keeping that list and updating it. And it's so time consuming, but it's so good when you get to, when you're like, I have this job. I know who I need to hire for it because I remember them from my list of like talented creators I want to hire. But I think that Dual Wield's not huge. I think we've got like 3,000 followers or something like that. But that's still a fair number than others, and we have the benefit of having Tamora Pierce license, and Tamora Pierce has a very, very large audience and a very, very large reach. And so what we've started trying to do is, when we partner with different creators, we try to leverage those connections. So if there is a work in progress that we've got, for example, we're working on a thing that is 3D rendered that will later no longer be 3D rendered and be a thing that you can purchase. NDAs, man.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I understand. I'm under like a half dozen of them at any given time.
Right? It's the worst. But basically what we're going to look at doing is doing an in progress thing, because generally with licensing, you never know if your stuff's going to get launched if you're an artist, because with the big companies, sometimes something will just get killed. Like it just happens.
Yeah.
But with us, like if something doesn't launch, then it's bad and I don't have any money. So things get launched pretty often. So what we're doing is looking at making it so that in a work in progress state, when we're like, hey, this is the item we're making, it's done by this artist, and then having Tammy with her 40,000 followers retweet it. And it's little things like that that you try to integrate in, because like, what's the point of doing this if you're not bringing people up with you? That is a very long angry answer that didn't quite answer what you were asking, but
dude, I don't even remember what I asked, but either way, no, that's an excellent point. Whenever you say, what's the point of succeeding if you're not bringing people with you, all I can think of is, we're taught about the idea of American exceptionalism and rugged individualism. Like one of the greatest examples of this is Lewis and Clark. When we're taught about Lewis and Clark, we aren't really taught about the support staff that were going with them. I mean, lip service is barely even paid to Sacagawea, who was integral to their completion of their task. And it's, don't get me wrong, like I'm not going to take away any of the air quotes accomplishment of Lewis and Clark, but they were just the leaders of an expedition that was backed up by a couple dozen specialists in various fields. And where are those guys? Where's the guy who named, like the fucking grizzly bear or the beaver or whatever, whatever animals they discovered. I don't know when people discovered animals. Give me a break. Where are those acknowledgments? Because another good example is look at video games. I mean, how many people can name a game designer that they like, or a game artist? They might like them on Twitter. They might have, something, but if a guy's working on like a Call of Duty, nobody's going to go, oh man, I really like that Phil guy, 'cause he modeled that red dot scope. It was all his style, it doesn't get broken down like that, and even you look at film too, and it's nobody's going to, oh man, I love that second grip, and it's just there needs to be more acknowledgement of the communal effort that goes into literally everything.
Yeah. how do you do that? And it's so interesting because that infrastructure is just not in place. And realistically, the only way to do that is to educate people into how the how is it made. And so for like merchandising, people will be like, "Oh, Rowan, I love this thing you made," and it's like, dude, I don't do the art. I am. You don't want me doing the art. It's not good. I just that was never something that I learned how to do. I can manage Photoshop and kind of Illustrator, and I taught myself InDesign kind of in 2 hours, but like that's it. And Dual Wield would not be where it was today if it weren't for all of the people who did the various parts. Like it's all of the artists, and that's why we have a specific creator section on the website, and that's why every creator is linked in the credits. Because like people should be hiring these people. Like they're super talented, and like the folks that help me wrangle uh back end stuff. Like I just this year finally I hired two folks to help me with general like please help, pandemic, burnout, tired, help. And it's like how do you leverage their skill sets and their expertise and their passion for helping you out into tasks that will benefit them. And I think that's a very interesting problem to solve. How do you give jobs to people that will directly benefit the goals that they have later in life? And it's not easy, but it very much, I think it comes down to educating people as to how it's made, so they understand all of the moving parts that go into it, because it's not Mr. John BioWare that is the head of BioWare and like is responsible for Dragon Age, but only the Dragon Ages or Mass Effects you like that's not how it works.
Wait,
It's
you mean to tell me that Tim
very much,
Apple didn't make my iPhone?
I know, right? I don't know how you're going to deal with this knowledge, but I'm sorry I had to break the news to you.
If I could flip this table, I would.
Right? You need arms.
No, I mean, I have hands, just there's no interaction on the table. This show's a work in progress. But, but yeah, dude, I have really enjoyed the hell out of this conversation. Like, one, it's just always so heartwarming to see that there are other people out there that give a shit, because far too few people do. And table flip is a must. Chroma, I'm working on it. Come on. But thank you for joining the show. Operation Warcade was pretty fun. But you know, dude, if I ever do like the politics show, you're definitely gonna be a guest. Like it's just happening. Like I should do like a real time with Bill Maher, except like good. I'll even get like a fancy avatar with a suit. Uh,
Yeah,
oh no, my hand.
genuinely. Oh no, it's gone.
It's back.
I
It's back.
Nice. I mean, I have so much. I so when the whole COVID thing happened and I was importing masks and doing all of these things, I like pitched stuff to different reporters like, "Hey, the government is really fucking up how we're doing the mask imports, and like I'm literally doing it right now and I can explain these things, or it's doing bad at the PPP, or these are the things wrong." And like no one cared. Like it's such a I yeah, no, you ever want to talk about that stuff? I'm entirely down because I have so many different things that I can be mad about.
I'll be in touch. But before then, I have a little bit that I call the 5 questions. So, the
Okay.
5 questions are 5 questions that I put together before the show that quite literally have absolutely nothing to do with anything we just talked about. Like, even if we'd stayed on script, it still wouldn't have had anything to do. But we basically just, yeah, as I said, we looked at the script and we are just like, we're not making an action movie today. We're making a drama. So, question number 1. What is the best number?
Maturity and the sense of humor of like a child. And so inevitably every joke that is about 69 just makes me laugh because like all I remember is teachers just getting really mad about that. And the more that someone is like, this joke that harms no one, like, and is actually a joke that is just stupid, and it makes me really angry. And the more that they are angry about it, the more I'm just like, this is mwah, like just hilarious. So yeah, 69 makes me laugh every time. If
Okay.
I could make more items that are just 69.99 and have that be a product category, like I would do that. It's so dumb.
Not 69.69.
Yeah.
Okay. So, question number 2. What is your favorite frozen yogurt topping?
Uh if I'm having fruity frozen yogurt, then it is maraschino cherries, um, mini gummy bears if they have them, but I will settle for normal gummy bears. Pineapple chunks, uh, and what are they called? They're these little round. They're like boba,
Oh,
basically.
mochi.
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's the ticket.
The way you said the gummy bear bit, that was like peak millennial right there. As a Vanguard millennial, I feel safe saying that. But I'll take the regular sized ones if I have to.
Very strong feelings about gummy bears and like the chewy textureness of gummy bears and like what the ideal gummy bear is.
I
Like
can understand
it's
that. I just still think it's humorous.
it's
Uh,
yeah. Tiny
uh,
gummy bears are superior, and I will fight anybody who wants to argue it.
Look, I'm not going to argue the point. I'm just going to disagree.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. It's not like we're talking about a fact here. It's not like you're all.
They're so good.
Yeah. And like personally, I'm a sour gummy worms person. That's my gummy candy of
Uh,
choice. Close second place, Swedish fish.
yeah.
Dude, those things. A brief tangent in the
Mhm.
episode of a mad amount of tangents. We do a Secret Santa at Starbucks with like a $20 limit. And they were
Yeah.
asking me, Skiva, what's up, man? Thanks for joining the show. You got here, like, unfortunately at the tail end, but you missed a crazy one. It'll be on YouTube tomorrow. So the person who was running it was all like, "Hey, what do you want for Secret Santa?" And I was like, "I don't know, fucking Swedish fish, you know." And she's like, "Be serious." And I'm like, "Look, I can't think of anything right now. I love Swedish fish, and my Secret Santa got me a 5-pound bag of Swedish fish. Like it's this big. It was so good." It was so bad for me, but it was so good. But Swedish fish does not go well in frozen yogurt, I don't think. But I've never
Yeah.
tried it.
Not so much.
So I do like shaved coconut. That's my jam, and fruity pebbles.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So instant best friend, heck yeah! I've always wanted to be best friends with Chroma Snare. Okay, that might be inaccurate, but I'm totally down for a new best friend. Awesome. Question number 3. Oh, hey, hand appeared at the right moment. Shark Week is next week. So if you could be any shark, which shark would you be?
Terrified of sharks. I the I guess it's better to say that I am terrified of enclosed spaces and I am terrified of water that I don't know what's in it. Like when you're swimming in the ocean and you can't see the stuff and then something touches your foot, like, no, I'm out. That's it. Um, so sharks terrify me. And a couple years ago, I went to Hawaii and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go cage diving with sharks. And there are specific sharks that are not great whites, but they are still really freaking big.
In
And I
Hawaii,
don't
my
remember what
best guess would be tiger shark. Like kind of a dark
maybe
grayish, like a gray brown with like kind of a blunt muzzle.
I'm gonna be real. Like I don't remember 90% of being in that cage because I was just scared. But I wanted to do it because I was like, well, I need to do it. And I think sharks are incredible. So like, sorry, the ultimate answer to your question is I don't know. But whatever those sharks were, that their whole thing was that they have been around so long since the boats that used diesel, which are not really used anymore because they've got different ways of doing it. But they have basically been around so long that they've learned that they will chum the waters if they hear the diesel boat. And so they're just like giant water puppies. They hear the diesel boat coming and they come and eat the chum, and then they just swim around the cage, and they don't mess with the cage. They're just like vaguely perplexed that you're in their water. And I love those sharks. I don't know what they are, but the ones that are just like big dumb puppies that hear brr and they're like, oh, it's food time. That's me.
Like, yo, what's up?
That's my favorite shark. Yeah.
All right, that's cool. We got Skiva in chat going great white. Personally, I roll with Mako. Because they eat the kind of fish that I like to eat, and they eat it how I like to eat it, raw.
That's fair.
Dude, yellowfin tuna is so good.
I miss sushi so much.
You and me both. But like, God, it's really difficult to find good sushi in the middle of the country.
Yeah, I don't miss that about Ohio.
But, oh man, I tell you though, I do miss Alaska for seafood. Like, everybody goes all about like the Northeast and stuff. And don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, like a lobster roll out of the Northeast, amazing. One of the best sandwiches ever invented. But the best fish and chips you're ever going to find anywhere is in Alaska. Like, those people know how to do seafood. So, but probably because everything on land can kill them.
You're
Oh, man. Grew up in Boston, good seafood for sure. Yeah, I'm not saying anything against the seafood in the Northeast. Just saying it's better in Alaska. But question number 4. What was your favorite Saturday morning cartoon growing up? Oh my God, Hans, stop freaking out.
Excuse me. I'm trying to remember if it was actually Saturday morning, but in terms of that general theme, it would be a very close tie between Digimon, like the first V1 Digimon, Beast Wars, and probably Gargoyles. I would say those are the 3 most formative cartoons that I used to watch all the time as a kid.
Yo, you just hit some like really good cartoons right there. Cause one, Digimon for life. I'm a Tai and Agumon kid.
Nice. Yep. Same.
Because he's a dinosaur. Let's see. Then I would also throw the Tick in there. Because
the Tick.
I have a huge love of absurd things. I wasn't a huge fan of Beast Wars though. But you know, it's just because like I grew up on, you know, the original Transformers in the 80s, and allegedly I don't remember this because I was like 4 at the time. Transformers the movie was the first movie my family ever took me to, but I took Optimus Prime's death like a champ. So take that, other kids. Earthworm Jim, good one. Voltron, another good one in there. The Snorks. Oh man. Dude, the Snorks are like one of those things where, like, do you have anything like from your childhood where like you remember it fairly well, but like not enough to like remember the title of it or anything, but nobody else you know like ever watched it, so you feel crazy because you have these really vivid memories of a thing, but nobody else remembers it, so you feel like, yeah, Snorks are like that for me. That and the Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I have no idea what Snorks are.
Oh, they're like little... Snorks are better than Smurfs, at least. Yeah. Snorks were like underwater Smurfs, is the best way to put it. It's not entirely accurate, but it's a good way of getting the idea across. Yeah, the Dark Crystal for me, like with that, it was... Nobody else had seen it, and I'm like trying to explain this movie to people, and everybody's like, you're making this up, and then you nobody else knows about this, and you're saying it for such a long time. Eventually you start to think, did you really make it up? And then it came on
Bears thing.
Yeah, but then it came on TV, and I was like, oh, it's the thing.
It's real.
It's real. Yeah, exactly. And it was just, I got a chance to see that last summer on an actual movie theater screen. Does not hold up that well. Like, beautiful puppetry and stuff. But like when I was, like 6, 8 years old, when I saw that movie the first and second time, I thought I was a fucking genius because like I was all like, oh, they look the same, so they must be the same people, and like that's where the balance, and like as an adult, I'm just like, oh my god, they laid it on so thick. If I hadn't picked it up, there was something wrong with me,
Yeah.
And speaking of gummy bears, the Gummy Bears Saturday morning cartoon was also an excellent one. If you are unaware of... So they were a family of bears that fought these like ogre creatures. And they did so by drinking their special berry juice, which allowed them to become super bouncy.
Hype.
Yeah. Like YouTube Gummy Bears. You will not be disappointed.
Excellent. That's excellent. The Saturday morning cartoons are just good. Like any of the old stuff, it's so chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, growing up with cable, I had access to Nickelodeon, which was basically the Looney Tunes network for the longest time. All that Nickelodeon really was Looney Tunes, Nick at Night. So like, I love me some Looney Tunes, and I love classic sitcoms. And it's just, Tailspin, Power Rangers, man, like chat is just rattling off the excellent things. Power Rangers are my jam. I just hated when everybody was all like, oh, Tom, you like Power Rangers in front of my friends. And I'm like, please shut up. I want to at least pretend I'm cool.
Even though Power Rangers was good.
Yeah. But, so, question 5. The last one. And Fictional Cat kind of spoiled it earlier. But can you make digital merch for a robot that lives in a garage on the internet?
Digital merch?
Well, sorry, I think I just put that word in there. Can you make merch for a robot that lives in a garage on the internet?
And the caveat to that is that merchandise is actually way more expensive, I think, than most people realize. And
I'm asking for a friend.
Merchandise. Sorry?
I'm asking for a friend. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Can you repeat it one more time? My Discord is apparently like, oh, you're done. I don't want to work anymore.
Nah. I'm asking for a friend because this robot living in a garage on the internet. Nah, we're fine. We don't need merch. But like my friends, they're quite interested in how all of this works.
Yes, it is entirely doable. It would be from a perspective of like designing merchandise, and from a perspective of someone who likes when people are like, this looks like a nightmare, I don't know how to do it. I'm like, heck yeah, let's do it. Doing a CRT monitor would be so interesting just because the pointy edges and the color palette and like, yes, I could.
Chromaster, other robots in garages? Yeah, look, man, Johnny 5 lives right down the block. Okay. And then a couple blocks over, we got the droid neighborhood over there. BB-8, kind of a dick. But BB-9E makes some bomb chili. So, just saying. And when it comes between the two of them, I just, like, BB-8 is so adorable and lovable. But just like BB-9E, man, there's just something about him, just looks great, and I love it.
Yep.
So, Johnny 5's alive. Yeah, man, Johnny 5's never going to die. He was all plated in gold at the end of Short Circuit 2. Got his, like, citizenship and stuff. Which is kind of sad that Johnny 5 could get citizenship before we could get marriage equality. And he was a decommissioned military weapon. Just unfortunate. Yep. Oh, man. Well, Rowan, this has been one of the craziest, definitely strangest shows. In a completely great way. Because usually so many of these go like, hey, what project are you working on now? What can you tell me about it? Hey, look at this cool video that I have for you. And then this one was like, let's get into like some of the economics of power and burn the system down. And I was just like, yeah, I'll bring some matches. And yeah, so this was a liberating show. So I loved all 10 minutes that I got to see. Well, yeah.
Thank you, Skiva.
Yeah, Skiva runs a live podcast on VR on YouTube with his co-host Alex VR. So I like to pop in there every now and then and ask them questions and then get mad at them because they don't know how to correctly pronounce Fresnel. That's another one of my petty hills that I'll die on. It's Fresnel.
Is the Fresnel?
Yes. So many
That's
people
valid.
say
I support you.
Fresnel. And as a person who speaks French occasionally and has a theater background where we had to work with different lenses for lights, it just gets to me, man. It just gets to me. So,
that's fair.
Before we go, where can people find you and Dual Wield online?
So our website is dualwieldstudio.com. There's no S at the end. I need to just buy that domain because that happens so often. You can find me online at Rowan Rowden, ROWAN ROWDEN.
Oh shit! Fictional Cat was on point and like has all of your links.
Fictional Cat, I would die for you.
Wow.
Hype.
You're still
Thank
my
you so
mod.
Doing the work. I like that. Oh, go ahead.
No, man, Fictional Cat's the best, man. Like, don't get me wrong, my other mods like Brian, Liam, they're my only other two mods. Like, they're great too, but like Fictional Cat is on point to like a level where I'm like, am I supposed to pay him? Like what am I? Like,
no.
Yeah, it throws me off,
that
man.
Rules.
Yeah, I'm like a shitty mod, so it's like I just sit in the channel and I'm just like, ban. But yeah, so.
No, thank you. Yeah, that was super helpful, Kat.
Yeah, dude knows his shit. But yeah, this is like no joke been an amazing show. And I can't wait to like get to know you better over the years of social media and stuff. Like, you cool people. So, well, I'll talk to you again in just a moment because now it's time for me to switch over to this camera angle where I say, thank you guys for being here today. I'm really sorry about last week. My electricity was getting worked on. We got the ductless heating and cooling system set up, and I didn't even get my office set back up until yesterday. But it's going to be worth it because now it's a reasonable temperature in here, which means I can work on things like features for the show. So that's always going to be fun. And I'm kind of making it up to you too, because this week is going to be crazy. Tomorrow, I've got Tanya DePass, also known as Cypher of Tyr on Twitter. She's going to be at 2 p.m. Wednesday, I'm taking off. I know, I just opened up with like, oh, this is going to be such a great week. And I'm all like, and I'm taking a day off. Thursday, and this is another one I'm really looking forward to. Marvel Spider-Man from Insomniac Spider-Man game, Yuri Lowenthal is coming on the show. Dude, I must have done something right in a previous life because I'm still pretty amazed I pulled that one off. And then Friday, I've got Timmy707 on Twitter. She is a solo developer on a game called Ancient Sky that I found out about last week on #PitchAGame. She'll be at 6 p.m. And Saturday, I've got a married couple, a group called Only by Midnight, working on a game called Curve Space, which is also really cool. You can find that on Steam. There's a demo available at 9 p.m. Just a quick reminder, all those times are Eastern. But yeah, the next couple weeks are going to be crazy, guys. So Please forgive me for my few days off. I needed them to literally cool off, I guess. But thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you to especially my mod, Fictional Cat. Thank you so much to my guest. For everybody, any new follows today, which is Rowan, which is also great. And to you all for being here, because without you, there is no show. So I will see you all next time on That Tom Clancy Show. So until then, have a great night, drink some water, wear your mask, and tell someone that you like a lot, that you like them and you appreciate them. I don't know why I'm feeling like that, but let somebody in your life know that you really appreciate them today. So have a great day, guys. I'll catch you next time on That Tom Clancy Show.